Dustin.
Hello, Hooper.
How are you this indeterminate evening?
I am quite fine on this indeterminate evening.
Yes.
We're coming to you live from the evening that you're listening to this.
That's correct. Whatever date is for you, that's what date is for us too.
And we're in your car. We're in the back seat. Turn around.
We're in your thoughts. We're in your minds. We're in you.
Walk a mile in your shoes.
All right. So welcome to the goodie room. It's the Hoopercast, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to us once again, wherever the hell it is that you are doing that. We're going to talk to you tonight about a new release, which is pretty cool. The film tonight is No Sudden Move.
We're sending a man that works in an office to pick something up. You are part of a babysitting team watching his family while he does it.
Good morning. Everything is normal, except...
What do you want?
Is that something you'd say? Normal Monday?
All right. So this was Dustin's idea to watch this film. So
It was.
No Sudden Move is the newest film by Steven Soderbergh. I was going to say the director, but that dude does everything. He directed this film. He edited this film under a pseudonym, Mary Ann Bernard.
Okay.
That's what it says. It says Steven Soderbergh as Mary Ann Bernard.
Okay.
If everyone knows it's you, do you need to use a pseudonym?
He's also the DP
He's
under the
also
pseudonym Peter Andrews.
Peter Andrews, which I have heard he's used that name in the past, but I suppose Mary Ann Bernard is some weird fan fiction. Like they'll never know it's me, except it's right there on Wikipedia. So
right.
Literally everyone knows it's you.
Yep.
The writer, he did not write this film, however, damn it. It was written by someone named Ed Solomon, unless that guy's made up too. Or any amount of the cast of this film, including, it's a great cast. We've got, oh God, put the glasses on, Dustin. I'm getting old as shit. I can't read anything. Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, David Harbour, John Hamm, Amy Seimetz, Brendan Fraser. Whoa!
Hey, B. Fraser.
Kieran Culkin, Noah Jupe, Craig Grant, Julia Fox, Frankie Shaw, Matt Damon, Ray Liotta, and Bill Duke. That is a hell of a cast.
Yeah, great cast.
So Dustin, will you try to pitch this? We're going to try to not do spoilers yet because this is a new release. If you want to go into it, we can maybe do that on the back end of this film's discussion. But will you try to sum up the plot? Because I tried this morning. It was hard. As
best I can. This is all off the cuff. Here we go. So the film's protagonist is Don Cheadle's character. Don Cheadle plays Kurt Goins. He's a recently released from prison ex-convict, and he is looking for a job. The job he finds is working for Doug Jones, played by Brendan Fraser, and the job is simple. We just have to babysit a house while the man who lives at that house, played by David Harbour, goes to his place of business, retrieves a proprietary document, returns home, gives the document over, and then everybody goes their separate ways. Super simple. The paycheck is $5,000, which back in these days is quite a hefty sum.
Yeah, it's the 60s, right?
Yeah, in the 60s.
Yeah.
So $5,000, hefty sum for just kind of sitting around a house and waiting for a guy to do a thing elsewhere. Mm-hmm. As movies happen, things go awry. The plan does not go according to plan. In fact, it falls all apart and results in death and intrigue and all kinds of crazy twists and turns. And of course, Benicio del Toro, I didn't even mention him, but he's sort of the second lead in the film. He's another one of the guys that are hired to work with Don Cheadle. And so, I mean, there's a good arc for these characters and a good little adventure for them to go on of self-discovery, but maybe more than self-discovery, just survival.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically no sudden move, but it is certainly much more than that.
Yeah.
And to really talk about what the film is about in depth, it's going to give some things away. I'd also recommend that you don't watch the trailer for this. I had seen the trailer. I didn't remember a whole lot about it. But I do think because this is a film that relies on twists and turns and it's almost like a whodunit / heist film. The less you know going in, the better.
I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
This is a film. What you need to know about this movie in case you want to watch it is if you like the vibe of Steven Soderbergh's movies, if you like Ocean's 11, if you like, what's another one he did? I'm blanking on. So I remember we reviewed a Logan Lucky, which was maybe that was the last movie he'd made before this, the last major one.
Yeah, there may have been
there was a couple of small ones, but
but Logan Lucky sure is the last big one.
Yeah, if you like crime movies, but you don't want to go like full Scorsese, you want a little bit more charming, a little bit more charm in your crime, a little bit more
right. But a little more absurdist humor, dark humor kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. But you don't want to go you don't want people talking about I Love Lucy, like a Quentin Tarantino film.
Right.
Soderbergh is the third leg of that tripod where it's like, what kind of crime movie do I want? Soderbergh, Tarantino,
Scorsese.
Or, I guess somewhere in there's like subgenres of Martin McDonagh and whatnot. But those people all spring off of crime. I feel like follows one of those three directors. It is somewhat. If those three directors are the genres of crime, everything else is a subgenre.
Yep, sure.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Okay, I gave this 3.5 stars. So
I did too.
The bare bones of this is like I said, if you want to check this out, but you don't want to be spoiled. Like you said, there's a plot. The plot goes awry, and the characters, our main characters, Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, are trying to figure out why they went awry, and are driven by a very simple goal of getting some money and figuring out what happened. Basically, like, let's make sure we're in the clear and let's get some money. And there's some other stuff ensues. So what I would say, obviously, is we didn't mention this. Maybe we did. I forgot. This movie is right now on HBO Max for its limited streaming run. So you could see this in theaters. If you can't get to theaters, you've got about 3 weeks left to check it out. So you're going to need that $14.99 membership, which I turned HBO Max back on a month early to watch this movie. So yeah, I would say that it is a really solid entry into Steven Soderbergh's filmography. I like the cut of his jib. I respect something about a guy who wants to have a lot of control over his art, directing, shooting it, editing it. There's something that doesn't feel egoistic about him, even though he wants all that control. It doesn't feel like a James Cameron level of egomania, if you will. It just feels like that's just what I want to do. And, you want the job done right, do it yourself under a woman's pseudonym in the editing case.
Sure.
It reminds me of people like Robert Rodriguez, people who occasionally just shoot their own films. So there's something I respect about that. So yeah, this has an 88 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's being pretty well received from critics as well. And yeah, I just liked, I suppose I just liked the pace. I wasn't sleepy during this movie. That happens a lot. We were watching another show right now and I get sleepy. It's just too slow. This is a long movie. Doesn't feel like it to me. Characters are interesting. They have interesting things to say. There is just enough here to where what's going on, but there's plenty that you're not sure what's going on. And this is one of those things, those movies gets rewarded with a rewatch because you'll go back and catch things like, oh, that's what that person's name was, or, oh, I see now. So I appreciate that the movie isn't making sure I'm following. It's like, hey, I said it. Were you paying attention? And then
that's one of the things I really do respect about the film is it just goes. And there's nothing like, hey, remember this from 45 minutes ago? Here's a quick little flashback of something. And it's just like the movie just goes. And whether you're on board or you're not, it's kind of like, just catch up, just figure it out, right? Like just roll with the punches, context clues, you'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
This went through a few casting changes. It was right about to shoot in April of 2020. And then of course, COVID. So everything kind of got pushed, and then, they swapped out some cast members. But this still shot relatively quickly. I think it was shot in the fall. And of course, one of the great things about crime films is you can get great actors, you can shoot them out in a few days, and you can get a lot of them, and there's not a lot of CG involved. So you can kind of put the film together pretty quickly. And get it out there. And it's
for sure. Cause this shot last fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it feels like a quick turnaround.
Oh yeah. I think it was like September.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I also give it 3.5 stars. I feel like, I echo everything that you said. Big shout out to the performers. I think Don Cheadle is great in this. Mm-hmm. And also on HBO Max in a couple of weeks, we'll see Space Jam. So just watch this to remind yourself that Don Cheadle's good. And then you can watch Space Jam and just turn your brain off. Benicio del Toro, he's always great. He's great here.
Yeah.
John Hamm, David Harbour, the whole thing. Brendan Fraser, it's just so good to see that guy doing things again.
Yeah.
So love that guy.
Yep.
Noah Jupe is just fantastic in everything.
Again, yes.
Yeah. Once again, I believe I said in my last review that he reminds me of a young Shia LaBeouf. Still stands.
Yeah.
The dude is like popping up in these little roles everywhere and working with really big name celebrities, like top of their game actors, and just sort of like learning on set as he goes. So anyway, huge shout out to him. I love the cinematography in this. So we recently talked about Zack Snyder shooting his own film. What was it? Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
And how that may or may not have been the best move. But you got to respect it. Here, like, I love the visual style of this. From frame one, you got this like almost fisheye lens that's like really blurry and distorted at the edges. And then the center of the frame is kind of where he settles his compositions, especially at the beginning of the film when everything's a little bit wider. Mm-hmm. And as the intrigue builds, it seems like things get closer and a little more claustrophobic. So I love just the visual style of it, the lighting, the color palettes, everything is just fantastic. So this is an example of a guy who knows exactly what he wants from his image and his performers, and he's able to get all of it. And so, huge props to him for being able to pull all that off. I didn't know he edited it, so thank you for letting me know that. But I mean, that's ridiculous to me that somebody sits in front of a computer and edits their own film with like a different hat on, because that's not easy to let go of things that you shot or like, oh, I got to pick a take now. It's almost like the editor's job is to come in, find some sort of subjective or objective truth in like, this is the best take, and then give it back to you. But if you're the director, it's like, man, how do you separate yourself enough from it to be able to pick what you're using?
Among the things the editor does for you is it takes away the burden of choice. Like, here's the take that works the best with what the notes you gave was or whatever. And it's like when you're doing all this stuff, like, his name's on more things. Oh, what an egomaniac, the control. But it's also a burden on the person, because they have to think about how it all comes together. They have to think about the performances. They got to think about the cinematography, and then they get in the booth and they're like, man, I gotta actually build these scenes like on a granular level. I'm sure there's assistant editors and stuff that sort of set it up. But that's what that title implies, is there's a whole lot of
decision making and
just hours put into it's not just reviewing a scene for another pass. It's doing that and then reviewing it,
right, and leaving a lot on the floor. I
wasn't a fan of the fisheye stuff. I couldn't figure out what that was meant to imply. And for me, I am a naturalist when it comes to cinematography. So anytime there's like filters or distortion on a lens, I'm like, this better be good, like there better be a good reason for this. And, and it to me, it suggested some weird voyeurship that didn't seem to apply to the film. So I was like, all right, whatever this is going for, I'm not accessing it. So I had to just pretend I didn't see it.
Sure.
But what I do pick up on with cinematography is movement. Mm-hmm. Framing is important to me for sure. I like when something's just well framed and pleasing, but I don't pick up on cinematography unless there's really good staging and movement. But there's that in here as well.
For sure.
But not as much. Soderbergh does a lot of tripod movement. I've noticed, like, it's not as much like other people will do, like Steadicam, Soderbergh seems to do a lot of like, now we're going to walk over to this thing and it's just a turning on the thing, so there's something accessible about his movies in that sense. They feel they're not so highbrow on a technical level that you're like, whoa, a movie. You almost, at least as film students, it's almost like I can see like someone we know shooting this, and that's a compliment. Like, it feels accessible. It feels like, wow, it doesn't make movies feel like this, stuff like the Avengers or other things with like lots of effects or crane shots or something, or like a gigantic set. It feels so daunting. It's like, my God, it's impressive. But on the other end of this, you have people like Soderbergh whose films are on a smaller scale and seem simpler, but they're just really well executed even on that small scale. Agreed.
And it's accessible, to look at and say, man, I could do this in a weird way. Like I could, there's something in there that I could do. But it's also accessible to the audience because what you have is like, this is not highbrow by any means, but it's certainly more thought out than most Hollywood films are. Yeah. And so what you end up with is this thing that pretty much anybody can jump into and kind of, like, for lack of a better term, kind of feel smart. Like, hey, I'm taking in film as art now and not as disposable media. Like this is someone's vision and I'm taking that in. And it's also, like you said, it's just palatable. It's easy to take. Look, these stars certainly help it, right? Like I read some of the folks that were going to be in this originally, Nick Cage, George Clooney, it would have been the same thing. But the point is, like, those stars help somebody. Like, I always think of, like, my parents or my grandparents watching a movie and be like, okay, so, that's sort of like a layperson watching a film. Stars help sell it, and you can really get a lot of mileage out of loftier ideas, or at least more frantic storytelling by having a marketable face behind it. If this was an unknown, I'm probably not going to pick it up. But hey, it's Don Cheadle. Like, you can't go wrong, right? And so yeah, I really appreciate how accessible it is on an audience level. And to that end, I found myself engaged from moment one. I didn't disassociate with the fisheye lens and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I just really felt like from the beginning I was on board with who these characters were, and even as we learn more about them as the story progresses, it just feels like there's more and more and more to learn. And so as there's more and more to learn and like get comfortable with all of the names they're throwing at you, and now I can put a face to that name. Right. Now I can put a face. As that happens, you just start to feel like increasingly engaged, which is a really good place to put an audience. So yeah, I really appreciated just how engaging it was and how accessible it was. There's been a few movies recently that I've put on and had to turn off, and I don't normally do that. Yeah. But I'm at this weird point in my life where I'd just really rather not waste my time with something.
Right. We've talked about that a lot lately.
Yeah, and so for this, like, to capture me from frame one was big, and I really enjoyed it.
We talked about this with TV as well, but like the idea that like, it really gets going the third season, and it's like that shouldn't take that long. And with a movie, it really shouldn't take more than a couple of scenes for you to be interested. But these days, like, you really got to sell to people quick. Why do I care? Or why am I interested, at least?
And maybe that's just as attention spans change because of whatever, YouTube or whatever, just an increasing amount of content that's seated between 15 and 20 minutes. But the point is, you do have to engage with a film quicker now than ever. Yeah. And so, there's a lot of shortcuts that happen in screenwriting to be like, he's a dad, he's this. And then you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's like, it's a shortcut to get me to care, but that's not engaging. Yeah. I think there's a difference. You can care and not engage. Yeah. And so, but you can't engage and not care. So I think, it hooked me from the beginning. So that's huge. And would I recommend this to people? Like, before we go into spoilers, right? Would I recommend this to people? Yeah, I think I would. I think it's accessible enough
on a general level. I would say so.
Yeah, that anybody could jump into it and get something out of it. Yeah. I think that if you're less likely to appreciate fast moving dialogue and being asked rather to just roll with it and wait until it makes sense. Yeah. Like, if you're willing to do that, then I think you'll get something out of this film.
I agree. I think that anytime I was confused, I was like, I'm sure this will become plain, because if good filmmaking does that, you get more out of it if you catch those details. Like Knives Out is that way. It's like you get, the film is still good, but you get more out of it on the first watch if you can actually keep track of everything it's throwing at you. And I'm easily fooled or misdirected by stuff like that all the time. So so I often don't pick up on that on the first watch.
Well, I think it's super important. And that's why I called it like a whodunit sort of. Yep. Is providing and withholding is huge in this film. They provide you with names, but not faces. Not faces. And they provide you with context to those names, but now the context is murky. And then it gets clearer, and then you see faces, and then it starts to all come together, and it's like this weird. Steven Soderbergh sitting there like, I have all the answers. Yes. Here's one nugget. and you're like, oh, thank you. And then he's like, here's one more.
Come back tomorrow for another.
Right. And he's just pushing these facts on us, and it's great. So yeah, I would recommend it if you're willing to be patient. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'll say.
Speaking of being patient, join us after the break. We'll talk more. We're going to talk spoilers for this. So we're done recommending it. So if you saw it or you want to hear about some spoiler talk, we got a little bit for you after the break. Be right back. Back. Yeah. So about that hot spoiler talk, Dustin, what do you got?
So I want to say this real quick before I forget. There was one line, and I'm curious if you picked up on this. So Benicio del Toro's name is Ronald Russo.
Yes.
Did you pick up on there's one line where somebody on the phone, I forget even who it was, maybe it's Ray Liotta, is talking, and he says, Russo doesn't know he just delivered the end game to us.
Yeah, he says something like, oh, wow.
And I was like, ah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he says he just delivered us his own end game.
He just delivered us his own end game. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, Russo did? Interesting.
Wow. So,
All right.
Anyway. That happens sometimes. I'm listening to the old podcast, and so we're talking about Civil War was coming up. And I said I was talking about Tony Stark's character arc, and I said something like, like they have to be working towards some kind of end game. And I was listening like,
they are.
Anyways, all right. What about this movie? What do you want to talk about specifically?
Yeah, man. So by the end of the film, Matt Damon shows up in this weird cameo role.
Yeah, he was really good in it too.
He was really great.
I was watching it. I like a few lines of dialogue. I was like, this is a cameo. And as the scene goes on, you're like, no, he rehearsed this. Like this is a role.
Yeah, exactly. So my whole thing was like, I knew, okay, we're gonna meet somebody, and it's gonna be some actor that I don't know that's in this, and they're in it, and so my brain was like, who could it be? Who could it be? Who's this person? And so my like Rolodex is going like, all these names of actors that could show up for this role. But Matt Damon kind of crushed it. Like he was super like smarmy and uncomfortable, like a time bomb. Is he gonna explode or is he not gonna explode? I don't know.
Is this a dangerous person or is this a benign person?
Correct.
Is the vibe I got. Like,
yes, exactly.
Is he dangerous or is he just really naive? I couldn't tell. And it was really neither. It was just like, I'm powerful. I'm relaxed about it. I'm not threatened. I'm not threatening. Yep. I'm just kind of curious, and I've got about 10 minutes, so I'd like to get this over with.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, and it's so funny.
I'm very busy.
Yes. I loved, so John Hamm at the end like reports to him and he's like, yeah, here's $400 and whatever $1,000, and Matt Damon's just like, just grab a bottle from over there. I think that was worth about $80.
Yeah, I was confused by that scene. What was that all about? Why did he give him what was?
So John Hamm was in Matt Damon's pocket.
Was he?
Yeah, and so he gave the money back to Matt Damon.
I thought he was auditioning to be in his pocket.
Right. Either way.
Sure.
And, And Matt Damon gives him an $80 bottle of scotch or whatever it was.
Right.
I don't even remember. At the end of this, and it's like, oh man, dude could have just taken that $400,000 and disappeared.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just such a sad moment for him.
Mm-hmm. A lot of sad moments in this movie like that.
Yeah.
Poor Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, and let's talk about Julia Fox for a second, because we didn't really talk about her.
Yeah.
Julia Fox was the one part of this film that I thought was out of place. The one performer.
Which one is she?
She's the one that shoots Benicio del Toro.
Okay, she's the Ray Liotta's wife.
Ray Liotta's wife, yeah.
Yeah, she seemed unnecessary. In the context of this film, no one really has the upper hand on anybody. No one has special skills. Everyone's kind of like the same. We're all human beings with guns, but there's no one's like a expert sharpshooter expert. That's one of the things about Soderbergh and even Scorsese, and probably Tarantino is no one. Even though characters have different levels and human beings have different levels of skills and smartness over each other, in the crime world, everyone's a 1 or a 0. It's not like no one is better at being a criminal than anyone else.
Correct.
On a physical level.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but this character she gets the upper hand on Ray Liotta, kills him. I guess outsmarts Benicio del Toro, but that puts her on a level of a Batman villain level statistician. Did you look at the road maps or something? How did you possibly plan this?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she fails ultimately, but that's not even.
That's not even the point.
I agree. It's more like, wow, you're almost it's like an anachronism how smart you are. Yeah,
well, to me, it comes across one of two ways. Either she's super smart and she's figured this whole thing out, or she's an opportunist and she sees that branch off and says, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
But she brought the gun. She's got the gun. So I don't know. But regardless, either she's super smart or she's super dumb and just says, I'm going to kill him right here, right now, and take the money and go.
She was way too calm. I think she planned it, but she comes off less like a character in that moment and more like the comeuppance of the other characters. Like, I'm here to represent karma. Oh, you beat your spouse, you're dead. Oh, you try to steal from someone else, you're dead.
But she never really factored into the plot heavily enough to be a player,
right?
Which I guess is maybe the shock value of it. Like,
sure.
I didn't expect her to be anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does feel like it comes out of nowhere.
It's a nice way to take two characters out of play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It feels a little bit rushed.
I agree with that.
All right, I got to get rid of a couple characters really quick, and this is how I'm going to do it.
On page 61, it says I killed Benicio del Toro.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Done. And then in terms of Julia Fox herself, I also felt like she was a weak link. I felt like, in a star-studded cast like this, she's a relative newcomer. She's, broke out in Uncut Gems and was, called a standout in that film. I just felt like she was a little bit weak in this from her first line, even. Her first line, the film opens and she's in like a bathroom getting ready. Benicio del Toro is waking up or something. I don't remember.
I literally remember because I was sort of settling in that scene.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, Max hadn't fully buffered the picture yet, so it's a little grainy. And I remember thinking I need to remember this person's face. I feel like this is going to be important. And I literally stared at her. I was like, this isn't just some woman. I was like, what? Show me your face.
You are. Face blindness. But her first line is something, I don't even remember what it is. It's something innocuous like, where are you going? Or, just something like that. But the way it's delivered is so stilted and whatever. And again, in a cast like this, I feel like you really needed somebody with a little more heft to them. And again, I'm sure Julia Fox is a fine actress. But I think that role could have used somebody a little bit heftier, especially given what happens at the end.
Would that have given away her importance?
No, I don't think so.
Not in a cast like this.
Yeah, I think in a cast like this, it just is what it is.
Just another famous person in the movie.
Just another famous person. And she factors in enough that if she didn't do anything else, it would make sense that Ray Liotta's married to a celebrity.
Yeah.
So I think it probably could have been a little bit better there. I don't know. My mind says Carey Mulligan or something in that role would have given it just a little more weight. How she brings to her roles this just inherent drama that just seeps out of her eyes.
Yeah.
I think that something like that would have really, really helped the film, I think. But who knows? I don't know. I'm not a casting director. but I did enjoy it. That was my one thing, is I felt like that particular storyline was a little rushed through. But I do love that Don Cheadle gets away and he wasn't greedy. He was just like, look, I just want my $5,000. I'm out. Bye.
He tried and they're like, you sure? And he was like, yeah, never mind.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yeah. It's nice when movies don't always end with the main character getting killed. It's like every greed story has to end with someone just getting shot. And it's doesn't have to. You can teach the lesson and let the person live and just let them, learn a lesson.
And in a good way, it subverts your expectations because you've seen that so many times in these heist movies, and that the main character gets greedy, especially when numbers start increasing. Oh yeah. And you do think that that's what's happening.
Scorsese would have thrown that guy in a meat grinder at the end of the film.
And you think that's what's happening, and then suddenly he's just like, nah, I'm out. I just want my $5,000. That's all I need. Bye.
Yep.
And it's just good to see a character, be like, all right, I said that's what I wanted. That's what I want.
Yep. That's no sudden move. Hope you enjoyed it as well as we did. So we'll be back in a couple days to talk about The Tomorrow War on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Sweet.